Hey everyone, I'm super excited today to be joined by the amazing Samantha Phillips. Now, I know Sam, we have spoken a few times before, but today I really want to talk because obviously we're coming up now at the end of the year, we come up to year end, which is really, really important for a lot of people looking at their insurance right now. But I'm also really excited to talk to you about the book. Now, those of you that don't know, we were crazy enough to not only do the event back in July, so CBG Live, but just before the event, about 8 weeks before, we had an idea. Why don't we just launch this book at the same time? So we frantically went out to some amazing industry experts, and obviously Sam was one of those, said, hey, we've got 8 weeks. Would you mind contributing to this book? Basically, we're going to cut out all the fluff, and I just want you to give me your top 10 tips. And Sam, I just want to say before we go into that, I'm
Yeah,
so
no
grateful that
pressure, by the
you
way.
did that. I'm really grateful the fact you gave up the time to do that because it's a big thing. We and I know why you obviously contributed because it's all about the charity and everything else we're trying to raise money for. But I'm really grateful. So I think it's best. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over to you if you don't mind. Would you mind giving them a quick introduction to you, and then we'll do a quick intro to the topic we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you already introduced me. I'm Sam Phillips. I'm kind of known in our childcare industry as the sparkly insurance lady or the childcare insurance expert in the space. So I've been specializing in insuring exclusively childcare owners since 2011. It's kind of my passion project. I recognized early on that there wasn't an advocate in the space for early childhood owners, and they were kind of being given well, here's this, sign it. Most agents don't really know what they need, and so I recognize that just need for an advocate to be able to come alongside and explain it more in depth. And so that's what I've been doing exclusively since 2011. I love working with owners every day. I love being able to be on the phone with somebody that's at the center and they're apologizing because there's a screaming baby in the background. I'm like, no, I do this every day. Like that doesn't bother me. I'm used to that. You don't have to feel bad or apologize about that. So that's a little about who I am, what I do, and why I do it.
I love the fact because one of the biggest things I think from having our own facilities, there's so many things that number one you don't know about, and because you're so in the day to day
Mm.
that legislation or something changes, and then around employment or HR and all those things, and then obviously insurance is such a big one, and it's one of those things you think will never go wrong, but heaven forbid if it ever did and the insurance wasn't right, it's such a major issue. And
Right.
I should imagine, I know the conversations we've had and the great reviews I've heard about the work you do, but
Thank you.
so many people. Have you got any ideas, or just maybe one example that you could share with us where someone thinks they covered for something and maybe they weren't? They didn't realize that they were missing maybe a vital part.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the services that I offer, and why I alluded to this and as one of the topics in the chapter, was being selective about your insurance agent. And one of the reasons for that is because I see so many policies. One of the services that I offer is a comprehensive coverage analysis. So I will take a look at your current policies. It doesn't cost anybody anything, but I want them to know what they have, what state their coverage is in, how protected or unprotected they are. So I actually will review those, 200 plus page policies, however many there are, and give you an idea of what's missing, what vital piece of coverage I don't see in those existing protection plans. And I have countless examples where abuse molestation liability is not covered by the policy. Obviously, that is a critical piece of coverage in a huge expense if there were to ever be an accusation for a childcare owner, because you're talking the attorney retainer alone. Most standard attorneys are 5,000 or less just to even have a conversation with them, plus $300 to $600 an hour. All of that's out of pocket. Plus, if there's any judgments or settlements awarded, um, I mean, abuse molestation missing from the policy is one of the biggest errors that I see. There's also employment practices liability, which protects the owner from accusations made against or by employees against them. So things like wrongful termination or harassment or failure to promote. I saw one the other day for a whistleblower. A teacher said that she kept reporting things that were being done in the infant classroom that were against regulations, and was terminated a month later as a result of, eventually, because the owner wasn't, or at least the accusation says that the owner wasn't listening. So she ended up reporting the state, and then was terminated for it. So things like that are not covered by a standard general liability policy.
Wow. And
There
have
are
you
many more examples of
yeah, but
a
it's
ton of
quite
different
scary
coverages
though.
just like that.
Yeah, it's quite scary though, because and why do you think this is? Why do you think that there are these things excluded? Is it because that the insurance that they might be using is just too generic?
Yes, excellent question. So most insurance agents are what we consider generalists. Anybody, they can insure gas stations, convenience stores, Dollar Generals, home, auto, all of those sorts of things. But for most, at least stateside, I don't know about where you live, but here, to get your insurance license, it's a 3-day crash course. That's it. That's all the experience you need, is a 3-day crash course in order to be advising people on the types of coverages that they need to protect them. And I've had my license for a while now, but I didn't feel comfortable with just selling somebody something on a thing I really didn't have a ton of knowledge about. So I started in the very beginning with reading the insurance policies to try and figure out, well, what's actually included in here? What makes one endorsement better than another? And really trying to get in the nitty gritty to figure out why certain things are covered over others. And then what can we do? I remember calling insurance companies, the different underwriters that I had, and basically interviewing them to find out, well, I read this, but can we get something else? Like, is there anything that can narrow this exposure? I see that this is an exclusion. Can we pay extra to remove that exclusion? Or is there a different endorsement that we can add? So the lack of accountability, I guess, and really making sure that an agent is educated in the space or experienced is one of the causes. Another big cause, I think, is just lack of industry experience. There's in the industry what's called a business owner's policy, which is just a very generic policy that applies to any type of business. It has general liability coverage. It has some property coverage. It's basically like a be all end all, can fit any business type. However, that does not mean that it's exclusive to certain industries. It's very, like I said, it's very generic. So an unendorsed business owner's policy would be missing things like abuse, molestation, and be missing things like professional liability. A lot of times I see business income, which is that would cover your loss of revenue if the business had to be shut down because of a fire or something like that. So it really, one of the reasons that you really need to be selective about your agent is because the experience, the knowledge, the background in a specific niche can really benefit in how those policies can protect you or not.
Yeah, huge thing. I remember as well during the pandemic, and we had a situation with our childcare facilities around insurance for loss of earnings, obviously. And I remember there were all sorts of cases going on where a lot of the insurance companies, that there's probably about 4 or 5 main ones in the UK really that people tend to use, and 3 out of the 5 didn't provide loss of earnings for anything related to COVID. And that actually,
same in the US.
Yeah, and so many people actually went bankrupt because of that they didn't have, and it's only, it's one of those subjects you think like, oh yeah, it's fine, don't need to worry about it. But when something does happen, then you're in a situation like where you could literally lose the whole business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a big thing to get, I guess, to try and get that across to people sometimes.
So when you mentioned the loss of revenue during COVID, so that one almost had me done for. I mean, it literally broke my heart not being able to find coverage and policies, because I mean, all I work with is owners, and seeing childcare impacted more than anybody really by the daily regulation changes and how many people you can have in a classroom, how many staff, having to lay off so many staff members, having to be closed, some of them, I mean, 9 to 18 months, depending on the state here. And it was I really had to get out of the negative headspace that put me in, because I felt somewhat responsible, even though I have nothing to do with the insurance forms that are created by these companies, but the fact that none of those policies were designed to really protect the business owner. And now you can purchase coverage for loss of revenue that's not related to a direct physical loss. And that's why so many of those claims were denied. Business income is usually triggered by direct physical loss. And that one key factor was not present due to the shutdowns caused by COVID. But
sorry,
that was painful for me. I know, because I just, the empath in me, it hurt not being able to help protect people better from that. You can buy coverage for it now. It's super expensive, but it is available now.
It's a big thing in the UK, but we had a client in New Jersey at the time, and they couldn't open for it was
New Jersey was closed forever.
Yeah, it was such a long time, and they were we always look at where we're more friends with our clients rather than, I felt so exactly like you just said. We literally we just worked for them for free, just as much as we did everything we could for the whole duration with them. But they just it was the most beautiful facility I've ever been in. Honestly, I've been in so many now, but that was the most beautiful one I've ever been in. But they lost the whole thing, the whole business, and they put their heart and soul in that. And it just, I hope just those points we've just mentioned there to people, that if you don't have that right policy, you just set up with a basic policy and you think, oh, I'm fine, I'm done. I hope people realize, just listen to those points that Sam and I have mentioned there, how serious this is. And that's why it's really, really important to get someone, such as Sam, to come in and actually look at what you've got in place. And I'd rather you, when you mentioned earlier, you go through these 200-page plus policies. I am so glad that's not something I do, but huge respect to you for doing that, Sam. But for anyone that needs that, it's a free service that Sam offers, so you need to be reaching out to do this, because Sam wants to help you guys to make sure you're covered. So Sam, in the book, tell me, you obviously gave your top 10 tips. Give me maybe 1 or 2 tips that you would give someone that was perhaps they come up to their renewal time right now, December time. What tips would you give someone right now to consider when they're looking at renewal?
When you're looking at renewal, I would say start at least 30 days prior to the expiration date. So if your policies expire at the end of this month, I'd probably start looking around at the end of November, beginning of December, just to give the agent a little bit more time. Ask your agent, are there other markets out there? Is this the only company that you have to choose from? The one thing that you have to worry about with contacting multiple insurance agents is you run into blocked markets. So insurance companies will only release a quote to one agent at a time. So if you have multiple agents submitting quotes, then one of them or multiple is going to run into what's called a blocked market. Well, they can't get a quote. But different quotes look very different depending on the insurance agent that sends that submission in. So I have a contract with a company here called Philadelphia Insurance. And I've recently reviewed 2 policies that were with Philadelphia that both of them were missing abuse molestation, 2 completely different underwriters, different states. But the agent that submitted the applications to Philadelphia wasn't aware and didn't request for abuse to be added to those policy. However, I also have a contract with Philadelphia. Had I submitted quotes for that same childcare owner, the quote would include abuse on it. So making sure that you're you're choosing an agent with some industry experience that knows the types of coverages to at least request from those insurance companies is probably your most crucial tip. And then the second is giving them enough time to be able to work on quotes for you. I get a lot of calls for, hey, I needed insurance last week, or I'm closing on a property tomorrow, and I will always try to work those in. But it's a little stressful, and not all insurance companies have an underwriting team with a very quick turnaround like that. So I would say start at least 30 days in advance to give the agent plenty of time to work on quotes for you and really explore the market and see what all available options you have. If you give them a short deadline, then the companies that you have to get quotes from are going to be shorter, because we're only able to approach those companies that we know can spit out a quick quote. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the most competitive for you.
And with regards to, is there anything new that you see coming around for 2023 that people need to be more aware of?
Not that I've noticed. There are some endorsement changes to some of the forms that I use, but nothing drastic that I really think that it's not changing the coverage a whole lot.
Okay. And quick one, if you don't mind, because one of the things I remember with us on our facility, you'd always get the insurance company ringing up, hey, you're coming up for renewal, we've got a great deal coming up and all those things. What's your advice around that? Is it the same kind of thing? Look, just take your time, try and speak to someone with a bit of knowledge first of all, get that reviewed. For me, I guess it would be a no-brainer for anyone to come to you and say, hey, can you take a look through my policy and give me some advice before I go to commit to renewal? Because I guess it's the unknown that actually is going to trip these owners up in some respect.
Right. So most companies, if most insurance companies have established procedures to where they're sending out renewal type notices 30 or 60 days in advance. Some even do as much as 90 days. So the insurance companies really, at least in the standard market, surplus is totally different. That's all dependent on your agent notifying you. But for companies like Philadelphia, for instance, they will send you notices directly, either by email or in the mail, kind of alerting you about your renewal coming up anywhere from 60 to 90 days out. So yeah, that could absolutely trigger. Now it's time to start looking around. Let's see if there's anything better than this out there. The other thing that I would say is there are premium credits available in most instances. It's a matter of providing the right information to be able to tap into those. So like if you had a building that was 20 years old, but you've completely remodeled it over the years, you've replaced the wiring that may have been out of code then, and you've updated that and brought it current now. You replaced the roof, and like in high wind areas, not only did you have a new roof installed, but maybe you also had it built to withstand winds up to 130 miles per hour. Things like that need to be provided to the agent. If you have that kind of knowledge about your facility, the maintenance, the ongoing preventative maintenance that you've done, the updates that you've done, all of that is beneficial information to underwriting, but that information is never going to make it to the underwriter if it's not relayed to your agent. So sharing that information about the improvements that you've made, about the updates, the ongoing maintenance plan you have, if you have an electrical contractor come out once a year, if you have a plumber come out once a year to inspect and make sure all of those things are in good working order, then passing that info along to your agent could possibly get you premium credits on your insurance policies, because it shows the company that you're doing everything you can to keep your facility well maintained. And the same goes for liability as well. If you have less than state required ratios, so instead of 1 to 6, you operate with 1 to 4. That might help you get a lower liability rating because you're better than the minimum requirement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a center in Oklahoma that had a built-in storm shelter. An entire classroom was a concrete block storm shelter, and that helped her get liability credit because she had a built-in safe room that could house her entire staff and all students if a tornado came through the area during school hours.
Wow, that's
So just
amazing.
knowing what information to provide and really what to ask to get out of each client. I do a lot of discovery and research, and I feel like a part-time private investigator sometimes because I really look for those things. I want to be able to design the best protection plan that I possibly can, but doing that means that I have to ask the right questions in order to really figure out what makes each program unique. What do they have going on at each facility? And how can I help them get the best rates for it?
Do you know that's actually so interesting you've said that. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with our insurance companies that have ever gone into that detail, asked us around maintenance we've got in place, upgrades to the building. But when you think about it now, it's almost like you've given me a slap across the face to realize like these are things that we basically
Sorry.
overlooked. No, in a good way. It's one of those things like you've overlooked these things in some respect, but hopefully that goes to show everyone that we know different to anyone else in terms of our facilities that we've run, because we never got asked any of that. I always, with the greatest respect, and I looked at it the wrong way up until COVID, but I always looked at it the wrong. It was just, oh yeah, insurance is coming up for renewal. Let's maybe get 2, 3 quotes, and yeah,
Mhm.
we'll go with the best one. My whole perspective after COVID or during COVID changed there because all the threads going on, people not getting insurance, everything else. But now you've just taken that to a whole nother level around,
Yeah.
well, we should be, one of the things we always try to get all the people, individuals we work with to put in place is what tasks do you need to do quarterly, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Well, I would be putting that on there. I'd be saying to everyone, okay, well, as part of your reporting or processes you've got to look at, coming up into that last quarter of the year, that Christmas, just before Christmas period, you need to be looking at the insurance. You need to be gathering your evidence ready to have all that stuff. So it's not one of those things you just go, oh, we've got an email and now we need to renew our insurance policy again.
Yeah.
This is things that actually could make a big difference. And I guess in some respect, I don't know what the difference is in terms of, well, if you've got a concrete classroom, how much that brings it down by. But that's actually quite relevant in terms of, electricity bills going up, all these bills going up right now. In comparison, it might help in some respect, I guess,
Right.
to help kind of contradict that, to contravene that price that's going up. So, guys, that's actually really valuable information there from Sam that she's provided. Not only make sure you plan in advance, make sure you keep a record of everything that you're doing, and provide that, question your individual, look at these things. And the biggest one of all, if anything, is take Sam up on the offer around, imagine someone else being able to go through your policy with no nothing else than best intentions for you to have a
No
look at your
strings
policy.
attached at all. It's
Exactly.
just a review, second set of eyes.
So you'd be crazy not to do that. In my personal opinion, if you haven't got someone to do that, if you haven't got Sam to do that, you'd be crazy not to do that, because I know I personally wouldn't want to do that myself. I struggle to read more than 10 pages, let alone 200 with insurance terminology in there. That would drive me insane. But
Luckily, I kind of know which sections of that 200 pages that I need to draw the most attention to at this point. But yeah.
so, guys, make sure you take Sam up on the offer. So, Sam, I will obviously put your contact details in, but what's the best way for people to get in contact with you and to reach out to you?
So I'm very easily accessible. I'm a modern agent, so you don't have to just call. I text all day long. You can reach me on or follow my childcare page. I've got a Facebook, Sam Phillips, childcare insurance expert. And I post there about webinars that I'm involved in, events that I'll be attending. All of those are free things that you can listen in on. So if you want links to access prior webinars that I really dive into more topics, certain coverages that you need, why you need them, what they mean, I'll post that information there. Call, text, email, Facebook, you name it. I'm very easily accessible. I will respond on any platform.
That's amazing. So what we'll do, guys, we'll put, when this obviously comes out to you guys, we'll put all the contact details down below, so you can make sure you reach out to Sam, but make sure you go and take advantage of that offer that Sam's given you today. Sam, I want to say a huge shout out to you, not only for jumping on today, but contributing to the Childcare Top Tips book. I'm extremely grateful for your turnaround time and all that value you just keep providing to this industry. It's
Thank you.
just massive respect to you. So thank you again, and hopefully I look forward to seeing you again. Maybe do another podcast in a few months from now with some new updates or legislation that's coming out.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to write a chapter in the book. I was very honored and still am to be a part of something so awesome. I
Oh,
love what
thanks.
you're doing. You're very different, Nick, and in a good way.
No, and no, it's just about, I think for us,
You
it's
can
just
feel
about,
your heart for sure.
yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is there are so many big companies out there that do, like you said, with the insurance providers. And I've heard so many stories about people where things have gone wrong, or they've just been forgotten about, or they've been left. And I just don't get that from you. The fact that you're offering to go through people's policies with absolutely no obligations just kind of says it all for me. And
Thank
I
you.
think that's why it's important that all of us here, we're not trying to get anything from this. I just want everyone listening to that this is just about providing value to you guys, and bringing
Absolutely.
people like Sam, because she's purely got the best intentions for you. And that's it. So Sam, I want to say a massive shout out to you, and I look forward to us
Thank you.
catching up again soon, hopefully over the next few months.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Sam.